Smart Nonsense Podcast, where we talk about entrepreneurship, self-development, and challenging your...
All right. We don't edit this podcast, Pop. So I understand you're on the floor right now, and people should watch this on YouTube. But just like improv, the show goes on. Okay.
No. Here's what happened. So I'll give you a play-by-play. I'll give you a play-by-play. I'll give you a play-by-play in my brain. So I started that quick, right? Because we've done that intro at least 200 times.
At least.
So I did it very fast, and I was proud of myself. So mid-sentence, I'm like, wow, I didn't stutter. In my head, I said I didn't stutter. So that means my mouth's on autopilot. And I'm like, autopilot, I trust that you're going to do this. And right when I got to the last word, I don't even know what that word was. It was just a mangled mess.
Norms, baby. We challenge norms here on the Smart Nonsense Podcast. One norm we've been challenging lately is this idea of playing infinite games, Pop. See, we have a problem. We have a major problem. This podcast hasn't been the same. I haven't shot a video. I know every time I come on here, I complain about Patty Galloway. Love that gorgeous man, but Patty Galloway really fucked me up. So, anyway...
no, this isn't a fidget. I
think this is going to be like another Threads podcast, and we're just trying to kind of get back into the groove of making content forever. So that's the plan.
My girlfriend, because I have one of those, yesterday she was eating one of these little eggs. And one I think it's really funny because English is her second language, so she's like, well, we only speak Spanish too, but they say like, like a Kinder egg, but they say like Kinder. And it's really funny. So she's like, you don't eat Kinder eggs? And I'm like, no. And she's just like being a child, and she's telling me how I behave like a 13-year-old. I'm like, you're eating a Kinder egg.
What's a Kinder egg? The thing
like Kinder, it's the chocolate.
Yeah. Like
the Kinder chocolate.
The Easter egg? The little...
Yeah, I didn't even know they made eggs out of them, but apparently it's a thing. And it comes with, I guess, toys, right? And so this is like for 3+ on the instructions. And she's got bad eyesight and is trying to read the instructions. She's like, can you turn on the light so I can read the instructions? I'm like, there are 3 pieces. Why do you need instructions for 3 pieces? And so I'm like, you got to be able to do this, right? And so she's like, okay. Here's the problem. I think you got to know what you're trying to build first. She didn't know what she was trying to build. She was just trying to slap things together. I'm like, you got to look at the global, like, what is the goal here? And
there's a metaphor here.
I don't know what it is. But 3-year-olds should probably get it. So I'm like, all right, what are you trying to build? She was like, she thought this was some sort of hitch on the back. So she was doing this. I guess you can't see this, so this is just fun for Henry and I. But it was a mess, and I just snapped it together in 2 seconds, and then we realized it rolled. And I'm like,
hey, Bob, speaking of vision, because this is just a Threads podcast, and we weren't even speaking of vision anymore. Did you ever tell the people about my eagle eyes?
Eagle eye? Oh.
Because I didn't know that was abnormal, or... Is it abnormal? Yeah, it's abnormal.
Yeah, we discovered this in Maine when we were trying to park, and we're like, oh, can we look for spots and see if it's like okay to park there? We're driving along the street, and there's something like 100 feet up, and you're like, no, we can't park there. It only says like 3 to 7 p.m. I'm like, what, dude? It's like 2 blocks away, and you're like, no, 3 to 7 p.m. Can't park there. I'm like, dude, I can barely make out the colors on that thing. And so apparently you have like 25 vision, eagle eye, and you've just been sleeping on it forever. And the first thing I said, I'm like, you gotta breed that.
Yeah, well,
forever,
there's
dude.
A metaphor there. It's like, if you're just in it, you don't know people aren't in it.
Oh, I like that.
That's just my world. That's just my world. That's just how I see. I don't even know. And there's a lot of metaphors in that. Like, you gotta put yourself in other people's shoes.
Both?
Hey, I'm gonna get the giggles if you don't have a thread. I'm gonna get the giggles if you don't have a thread, Pop.
I got another thread. It was kind of depressing.
Oh no! You can save that one for the end.
Okay. Well, I had a big one.
Tease the depression. Saunas, dude. Let's take that thread.
Dude. Fuck yeah, dude. This pod rips, dude. I was gonna talk about Clip 2.0. That was kind of like the big, like, new thing for business. If people come here for business, I don't know what people come here for anymore. I just come here to hang out. Long-term games, infinite games. So basically,
you can't just blurt things out that we talk about all week.
No, teasing, dude. We're gonna get to it.
No, we're not.
Because we got all the commandments coming.
We're not gonna get to it.
So, here's the thing. Okay, this is guy Yuri.
Wait, before you go into Yuri, I said yesterday. This is the Asperger's, dude. I was telling Athena yesterday about Clip 2.0, which we're going to get into. And I told her this idea about playing infinite games. And again, if you're not in the world, that means nothing. She's like, what do you mean? So you can just like, is it like video games? Like you play games, like you give them infinite games to play? Like it literally means nothing if you don't know the context. So you're just out here yelling out long-term games, infinite games. All right, Pop.
Right, dude. So we're gonna play Xbox later. Wilkinson podcast. We should talk about that too. That's a thread thrown up there. So basically, talking to Yuri. Yuri's one of those people. He's caught. I was once a semi-employee, and he was also a semi-employee, making a lot of money at this company, and he has these aspirations. Like I was always the therapist at the company because he wanted to like control things, but he couldn't because it wasn't his business. And I'm like, dude, just start your own business. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. We did it. Relatively successful. Hey, what did I say that one time? Major success, big success. We're like super successful. Yeah, we're super successful.
Super successful.
And I'm like, Yuri, it's possible. You just got to do it. And so I don't know. It's always like every month they'll hit me up. He's like, here's my idea. Here's why I want to do it. I'm like, all right, do it. And it just like,
is it always the same idea?
Similar realm. It's like one's an agency, one's an email newsletter. Just never really makes the leap. And Yuri was going to connect to something.
Don't have a stroke.
Oh, okay. So one of the things is like, I'm like, Yuri, you just got to get started. Because there's this Paul Graham tweet, I think, too recently. I think it was Paul Graham. He's like, yeah, most people don't know for the first 1 to 2 years when they get product market fit. Maybe this was Mark Andreessen that he's quoting.
No, it was Paul Graham.
But I don't know if he was quoting Mark Andreessen. Regardless, it was like 1 to 2 years, you don't really know what you're selling. It's like, just fucking get out there, test the market, maybe be the product yourself or be like a client yourself. And I'm like, Yuri, we don't know what we're doing. Like, we're still doing well, and we still don't know like what our product is. So that was kind of the goal of this week. Was like, let's figure out what Clip 2.0 is.
That's been the goal of the last 3 months, 4 months.
Yeah, dude. So here's the thing. We're like not an agency. We started as an agency, and we're doing like all this stuff, and we listen to Naval, and he's like, yeah, productize yourself. Like, okay, take this agency, this service, try and productize that. So make it 10 for 10. It's just like you come in, you buy the package or not. Turns out, sold really well, package sucked. It's like it doesn't get results, or at least the results people wanted. So we're like, all right, screw that. We wanted some flexible package. We're like, let's be marketplace. Now you can just hire our editors, do whatever you want. Turns out, as we're going up on the people that all bought that when we first started selling in January, they're like not re-upping. We have a lot of people re-upping that have bought since, but it's like, it's not good without decent strategy. It's like, yo, what are we gonna do with these people? I'm looking at Buzzsprout, one of our clients, and they're like, got multiple editors doing great edits on the absolute dirtiest content, like dumb content. And I'm like, you guys need some strategy. And it's like super basic stuff. They're like, hey, tip number 2, you should do X, Y, Z. It's like, no, people on TikTok don't watch like a series of tip 1, 2, 3. It's like some fat girl shaking her ass, and then it's your tip number 2, and then it's like a monkey eating a banana. It's like, that's just how things work. It's never in sequence. So just a lot of goofy mistakes. And now we're circling back. We're like, okay, Clip 2.0. We want to be like this weird in between an agency and a marketplace, which is kind of what we were before, but it, like even more so towards the agency realm. But agencies suck. So like, oh, we want to be the anti-agency. And what is anti? Because people are like, oh, what's an infinite game? I don't know that. Dude, I think like once
you're on a roll.
If you were in my head, and this used to happen to me giving presentations, I become so hyper conscious. Like if you were in my head, you would know that in me talking, almost every other sentence, I'm like, good, you just did that sentence. Like at the end of each, instead of a period at the end of each sentence, I'm like, nice, you did it. You made it through one more.
There's not enough room to do that.
Right, no, because I'm saying nice one more, but words are already coming out for the next one. So I'm already behind. And now I'm like, fuck, I gotta catch up. And then it gets all gargled.
It's autopilot. That was like me. I was sitting down with this kid the other day. He went into kid I went to school with. I did it again. How about that? And he wanted to ask me about Dunbar. He's had similar ideas. And I just started having a panic attack mid-sentence. And I'm like, I got words to say. And my brain's like, you dying. And I'm like, I still got words to say.
Sometimes I get really nervous giving people advice. I'll because I try and sound wise, but I'm like, why am I trying to sound wise here? And then I just fucking turn into a clam. And just
that's basically what happens.
But I think, okay. So basically, like, every agency is doing things wrong. Like, okay, anti-agency. It's like, it started from anti-goals. It's like, I don't know who actually started with this, but it's like, what are your goals? Well, I want to be successful. It's like, that's really hard to define. What's a lot easier to define is like, all right, how would you not be successful? Oh, I wouldn't be successful if I'm like living in the darkness with no friends and like no family and whatever, not like exercising, etc. It's like very easy to rattle off what's not successful, and you just avoid those bad things. And that's how you kind of inadvertently become successful. So same thing with an agency where like, yo, if you wanted to create a really bad agency, this is what you would do.
Because we were one and we worked with them.
Right. We work with a lot of really bad agencies. And we're like, yo, this all sucks. And it's like the kind of thesis of all of it is like they're trying to play these short-term games, like figure out how to get the most success in a really short amount of time. But that's just never been a game that we wanted to play. So our big like realization somewhere along was like, oh, our key difference is that we want to be creating content. Well, I don't know. When we had the Patty call, we got kind of rattled and stopped creating content. But we're like, we want to keep having these conversations, recording them, putting out to the world forever.
Because Patty changed the rules of the game. Patty defined the rules of the game. So we were playing this infinite game. We're like, we just make content because we enjoy making content. And Patty's like, you can win on YouTube if you do these things. And we start doing those things and we're like, oh, now we're playing to win. We're not playing to play the game.
Right.
And we got into a lot of trouble because then you're swapping intrinsic motivation for extrinsic motivation. And if the extrinsic motivation doesn't come, you're fucked.
Right. Right, because that was the first thing on the call. He gets on, he's like, yeah, normally people bullshit when they're like, yeah, we don't care if anyone views, but you guys have put out like 500 videos and no one's watched them. So clearly you're not bullshitting. And so he just comes in and he's like, hey, this infinite game you were trying to play, sure, that's fun, but like, you're here because you want to be successful and win the finite game. I'm going to tell you how to win the finite game.
Yeah, right.
But it totally fucked it up because we're like, no, we were already like on a good track. We just wanted to like do a little bit better in our infinite game. So that's where it skewed all our stuff up. And so I think that's a big problem with what we became as an agency was like, starting with our first client was my first million. It's like, how much content can we pump out really fast to just grow super fast? And like, that's just not the goal. If you look at creators, it was that video I sent you yesterday, but it's like the average creator, especially if you're going like, it's pretty much Lindy. It's like however fast you go up is how fast you can go down. And so the average creator is like 5 to 7 years lifespan. It's like, well, why is that? Probably because they burn out or like people get sick of them and they start like adapting themselves to fit what they think people want. But it's really, you should just be creating for yourself. So we lost track of that. And we think a lot of our own clients lose track of that. So we want to set up front like, hey, here are exactly our Clipt commandments. 10 anti-goals, like anti-agency. It's kind of confusing in a sense.
It is kind of confusing.
It's like, this is what agencies do, and this is what we as the anti-agency do. So normal agencies, for example, they'll try and play to win, like we just said. It's like, we want to play to win. That's always the goal, let's win. It's like, no, that's not the goal. The goal for us is let's play to play. Like, for example, with my TikTok or these podcasts, it's really cool when we record it, send it out to our awesome editing team, and it comes back and it's like, wow, it's a really funny or just like creative edit. We're just proud of it. And it doesn't matter how many people watch it because it's like, oh, that's something that's just cool for us. Like I'm willing to like continue doing that just to look at it for myself. So that's like the number one thesis is like, okay, are you on board with that number one commandment? You want to play just to play. I think a lot of people don't really enjoy content. Like Darmesh, one of our clients, he doesn't actually like video, doesn't like being on camera, which is weird for us because we're like, oh, it's fine being on camera. We're pulling teeth, and he's not getting results, so he's getting disappointed. Why? Obviously, because he's trying to play this finite game, and he's losing a finite game. So that's the worst of both worlds. It's like, let's get him to the infinite game, where it's like what we're doing, where say he has some written piece of content, he doesn't want to be on camera. We're just like Naval. We'll just animate whatever he's speaking of. I don't want to get into specific examples, but that's like just changing the mindset because most people don't come in preaching this. This all came from 37 Signals, by the way. They have, it's like Basecamp. I don't know. The companies use that. It's basically like for small, medium-sized companies to talk within, and just, it's like Slack. But they did this where they had 37 signals of like how they work. And that's what attracted a lot of their clients or customers to them. It's like, oh, we're coming to you because of your philosophy on work. We just love that and how you create software.
Well, and what we realized we lost is at Smart Nonsense Media, we got our entire start, $0 to $1 million, selling our rule book. And it was like this page of our rules and what it takes to work with us. In the last 6 months, we ditched all of that to kind of become a marketplace. And we're like, in doing so, Clipt doesn't actually stand for anything.
Right.
There's no mission, and we don't take a stance on anything. And so we're like, oh, our stance is this really weird and wacky way we work. And it's these commandments and principles that are like musts for us.
It reminds me of when Plankton, he tried to copy the Krabby Patty, and he just had a factory of churning out like gray slime, and he just sprayed it.
Chum burgers. Chum. Dude, it was just chum.
Whatever it was, but it's like
chum.
We just turned into that Plankton because we were trying to like manufacture this marketplace, and it lost its life, and it lost like the SpongeBob personality behind cooking the burgers, and that's what made it special.
Right.
So we're trying to come back and have the Krusty Krab.
And what ends up happening when you lose that SpongeBob authenticity is you start competing with everyone.
Right.
So now we're competing with All In Talk and Our Future making clips for companies and like 10 other people. Not to mention even like this new AI generated stuff.
Hey, dude, that's number 3, I think. That's commandment.
That's one of our
I want to go through them really quick. So number 1 is it's going to be cool. You'll see the website whenever we do it. It's going to probably be beat the first time because we don't actually know how to do it. But hey, first word of the next one. Okay, so play to win. No, we want to play to play. Normal agency will beat the competition. That's their goal. Let's beat the competition. Here, competition is for losers. So we think at Clipt, it's like, hey, we don't want to compete with everyone. We don't want this generic website that just looks like the best. And I'm like, why don't I do Fiverr? Or why don't I do it in-house? It's like, no, you come to us because of our principles, how we approach work. That's unlike anyone else. Number 3, normal agency wants to set goals. Like, no, fuck goals. Goals don't matter. Just build systems. Like systems right now, we'll just shoot this podcast. We'll throw it to the team. It'll come back in a couple of days and it's like all published. It's just amazing. So you don't have to worry about goals. You just keep creating what you like. Another one, agencies are always like full service. Want full service everything? Like, no, epicenter only. As in, say you have a hot dog stand. What can't you take away without it? It's kind of confusing phrase that way. Like, if you were to remove things from your hot dog stand, say you have like hot dog, buns, ketchup, mustard, relish, like you want to remove something, napkins, what can't you remove? Oh, well, obviously you can't remove the hot dog like itself and probably the bun. Like that's by definition a hot dog. You can remove the relish, mustard, ketchup, napkins, whatever it is. You're still going to be a hot dog stand. It's like, okay, for us, it's a video agency, anti-agency. You can't take out the video editors. And in our case, you can't take out like the strategy. You kind of think of it as a vector. It's like, okay, you want to produce something with a purpose going in a direction, like speed with the editor, direction with where you're going. So those are the 2 fundamentals there.
And that comes from like a world in which people used to want everything from us. So we had editors, and then we had project managers and graphic artists and quality assurance, like people reviewing clips. And it's like, you can remove the reviewers and the project managers and the graphic artists, and you're still making animated clips.
Right.
So let's cut out all the crap that's not the epicenter.
Well, we also see it's like, Okay,
We're not going to do your titles and thumbnails.
What I like, I was actually listening back or reading some parables. So it's like the Mexican fisherman parable and the Chinese farmer parable.
I love the Mexican fisherman.
Mexican fisherman's awesome.
The capitalist.
I want to memorize it. Like I try to memorize it so that I wouldn't butcher it. But yeah, we'll leave that. You can look that up if you want. But the Chinese farmer, do you know that one?
I don't think so.
That's the one where it's like, okay, Chinese farmer, he has a horse, right, on the farm. One day the horse runs off, and all his neighbors are like, oh, bummer, the horse ran off. He's like, maybe. And the next day, the horse comes back, but it brings 7 other wild horses with it. Now everyone's like, oh my God, that's so amazing, you're so lucky. He's like, well, maybe. And the next day, his son gets on one of the horses, and he tries to ride it and tame it, and he falls off and breaks his leg, and everyone's like, oh, that's so horrible. He's like, well, maybe. And the next day, in comes the army to enlist all the young men. And like, oh, we can't take him. He's got a broken leg. Like, oh my God, that's amazing. They didn't take him. Now he's safe and sound. Like, well, maybe. It's like everything is like good or bad. It's just like, hey, it is what it is. It's a complicated world. Like you never know. The point is we have a lot of bad agency experiences, like working with Todd, old employer, or E2E, which is our current like accounting service for like, you're doing things really wrong, or Westbrook, like Will Smith's agency. We see things they're doing wrong and we're like, okay, rather than take that as just like, oh, it sucks that we don't get the service we want, let's use that to create something better. It's like, yeah, maybe it's bad, but maybe it's also really good. And you don't know, and you can kind of spin it into this anti-agency thing. So another one we have, I don't know, still kind of on the fence about this, but like Seinfeld versus Curb Your Enthusiasm, where both created by Larry David. Seinfeld is super scripted. It's like really funny, but it's like you're an actor, you come in and you just know your script. It's very like micromanaged. Versus take a Curb Your Enthusiasm. They come in and they have like bullet points with scenes and like roughly where they want to go with it, but all the dialogue is just improv. And that makes it super fun. And it's like, hey, that's what we want with our video editors. It's like you come with the vision, you give them some inspiration for the direction you want it to go, but they fill in the gaps.
And then you're okay with the output.
Right. Like sometimes it's amazing because it's just like, wow, I never would have expected that. Sometimes it's lackluster compared to what you thought, but overall everyone's a lot happier because you get to stretch or like exercise your creative muscle. Hey, we get super serious on some of these, but
this is sick.
Perfection through revision. That's a normal agency. It's like, let's revise this. Let's get to V3 so it's perfect and like make sure there's no spelling errors, no like mistakes. For example, there was something I put out this morning. I wanted them to use other B-roll, like I even provided the B-roll, but they didn't do it. And I was like, hey, kind of bummer, but just for the future, try and do it. It's a dope video. I'm still going to put it out. So our approach, instead of perfection through iteration, oh, fucking hell. Perfection through revision is perfection through iteration. So like we want to iterate as fast as possible. That's kind of Naval, his saying is like, rather than 10,000 hours, it's 10,000 iterations. So how many reps can you get? And that's the best way to improve really fast.
Yeah, because I also think like, okay, you could have gone in and swapped out that B-roll, and then it would have taken another day or 2 days, or you could get 2 clips out in that time that are 80% awesome.
Right. This is where I was thinking like it comes from a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I only have like 5 good ideas. This has to be perfect, each idea. Same thing with Veritasium. Versace, dude. He's like, hey, I put a lot of effort into each one of these videos. I want to make sure the titles and thumbnails are awesome so they get viewed as much as possible. It's like, that makes sense if you're putting a month of time into each video. But if you're putting like half a day of research and you can just do the same thing tomorrow because you just love being curious and like that's your favorite way to iterate, then you don't care about these things. Because you're like, oh, one more day. If you have finite resources, like for example, if we just have 2 or 3 editors, you know, like, okay, do I want to use them to revise this or to work on a new one? Because I can't like grow my editors. It's just not possible. So I'm like, I'd rather just have them work on a new one. This is like 80-20, get it out. So another one. This is number 7. A normal agency will try and be harmless. As in,
that's a good one.
We want to be safe, like play within the bounds. No, we want to do no harm. The anti-agency does no harm. As in, being harmless is like, okay, we're never going to get near the boundary. Let's play within the lines, make sure no one ever even gets close to hurting themselves. The do no harm is, I view as the sort of anti-fragile approach. It's like, if you do, say, like jumping jacks or squats and stuff, and you're like jumping just a couple feet, you can build muscle, get stronger, and like prevent injury. But if you jump from like 30 feet, you'll break legs, you'll probably kill yourself. So it's like, okay, the do no harm is like, let's not jump from 30 feet. But let's figure out where that line is. Let's play, sometimes go above, like let's jump, I don't know, 5, 10 feet, see what happens. And then like figure out where that line is, but we're constantly towing it. And that's the fun part for everyone of like taking risks and seeing sometimes some are rewarding, some aren't, but it's never really like life or death harm that we're trying to do.
That's a sick one, Pop.
Hey, add away. Way to add.
That's my addition.
2 more?
Hey,
3 more.
Let me add on to that one. I think a lot of agencies in this be harmless idea, they end up making a bunch of stuff that's all the same because nobody wants to rock the boat.
Right.
That's what I want to add.
I feel like I'm thinking back when we tried to do, for example, like a call-in ad, and it was like our first time going for something. It was like, or call-in, we put out something that we thought was cool, but they like tried to make some certain tweaks to like, if Elon saw this video, he probably wouldn't approve of it. It's like, well, one, you're like friends with them, so it's like, ask for forgiveness, not permission. Let's just like put them on it because it'd just be a lot more entertaining. And then they did so many revisions, they never even released it. So it's like, that didn't even matter.
Right. But it's also like, Elon in the video, it does no harm. What's the worst that can happen? You put the video out and he comments like a laughing, crying emoji because he's in it and like fake endorsing it. It's like, oh, now you got some publicity from Elon. It's like, just toe the line.
I mean,
toe the line.
I don't know. I guess when you have like real money at stake, it's probably like a lawyer thing. I don't know. We just don't deal in that world. That world sucks. Okay. Another big one. This is probably like our biggest differentiator in general is most agencies are very sync. They're very, hey, let's get on a Zoom call. Let's go over this. Let's take like an hour of our time every week. Like that's a big selling point for even our accounting service. It was like, hey, we're gonna make sure you get at least 2 calls a month. I'm like, at least. I don't want calls. Like at most, like please limit them. Like I don't want them at all. Just give me bullet points of what you would say.
Text me.
So that's our biggest thing is like we are async only. It's like we'll design the systems so that you don't need sync because you only need sync when you're just unorganized or it's like a spur of the moment sort of project that you're trying to get done, but it's like we don't want to do those. There's never a time rush. We're playing the infinite game forever.
Or if you can't take the time to think through something and communicate it clearly in writing, then you just get on the call and talk about nothing for like 28 minutes. It's like,
hey, you're used to those.
Now, imagine you're on that hour-long call with 15 people. It's like, okay, now we've got 15 human hours tied up.
I can't even imagine that. I opted out of the one-on-one calls. I don't even... Yeah, I remember we had like...
Oh, one-on-ones with teammates.
Or like one-on-ones with anybody, like you talking to a client or something.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I opted out that. I didn't even think about like having like 5, 10 people on it. That's fucking ludicrous to me.
Well, right. We would get on a call with like Westbrook, and this is a premier agency. They do all the Will Smith stuff. Our email thread is like 15 people. Each default to getting on a Zoom is like 8 people, 12 people. It's like, it's a lot of human hours.
Right.
Not to mention hours on both ends of the call that are destroyed by thinking about the call.
For me, it's days, dude.
Days.
If something is in my... this is kind of my like... I think the sync versus async is kind of cool, but most people are like... I think the hottest take I currently have is I'm very anti-calendar. I don't believe in calendars at all. It's like, I also look at Warren Buffett, and when they had that story with Wilkinson, hey, we'll get to that Wilkinson in a little bit. But Wilkinson, he's like, yeah, I wanted to talk to Warren Buffett because they're doing similar things where they have this, what do you call that, portfolio company? Holding company, and they buy a bunch of other companies and just let them run. He's like, I wanted to talk to Warren Buffett. So one day I just kind of like emailed their assistant. I'm like, hey, can I talk to him? She's like, well, just call. And if he's not busy, he'll pick up. He's like, what? So he just called one day and he's like, hey, it's Warren. Like, what? You're like one of the top 5 richest people in the world and you just pick up? It's like, yeah, I don't schedule anything. I don't want, especially like really far out in the future. That's just like
Yeah.
fucking your future self. But people are okay doing that. It's like, no, just like if I'm free now, you can call, and if I'm excited, I'll pick up.
Oh, I was just reading something, and it was like, it might have been Jason Fried, but he's like, if somebody asks me to do something and it's a week out, the default is no. And he'll tell them like, hey, like I just don't plan that far out. If this is today or like in the next 2 days, we can lock something down. But like his default is no if something is a week away.
I'm so upset. Like, I think now I look at people that I thought were successful, and I'm like, I see almost all of them as unsuccessful. I'm like, Wilkinson, even listening to his podcast, I'm like, he just kept reinvesting all this money. He's like, yeah, I just reinvest like 90%, and it just compounded so hard. Like now he's probably almost a billionaire. But he's like, I don't know, I'm just gonna like buy restaurants and like, I don't know, make a hotel in my, it's like, I think he just overshot it. Like he just reinvested too much, like maybe he just doesn't have high costs, like there's nothing to do. But I'm like, I think most people just don't know where their limit is. When is enough, so they just, almost everyone overshoots it or radically undershoots it. I think very few people like hit it right where it should be. So I like analyzing more like, who do you want to be first? Like really seeing, okay, is Naval, for example, we're like, oh, Naval's our version of success. Like, is he really successful? Did he overshoot? Did he undershoot? Like, is he really trying to be what he is? Like, that's his measure of success. What did he want to be? And we don't know what he wanted to be, although he has his podcast, so we kind of know. And we're like, okay, he's doing that pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's successful, but like the Branson or the Musk thing, like I put out this TikTok, I ate like 2,000 views. Let it rip. It was Elon Musk talking about how he hates being a manager. It's his least favorite thing. He's like, I don't want to do that. I just want to be working on engineering and design problems. That's my favorite thing. But no one else can run these companies as well as I can. So I got to be the CEO of Tesla and half run SpaceX. And it's like a boring company, all this other stuff. It's like, he's a failure in my mind. I don't want to be like that at all. Detracting two more. ASAP. ASAP is poison. Is our version. Most people use ASAP in general. It's like, no, fuck ASAP. Nothing's really that important. No one's going to die. If there's like a very measurable, we're not going to make $1 million if we don't do this right this minute.
Which,
okay.
When is that, you know?
Right. We've never actually encountered that ever. The one time we got ASAP'd the hardest was by Will Smith's team saying, hey, we got this book launch in a week. We got to get all 10 of these clips out and let's just figure it out. And we like literally pulled our whole team off of it. And like, oh, we realized like we're going to be launching the book over the next year, so it doesn't really matter when we post these. Like,
and then 2 of 10 go out.
Right. Like,
and it's important to remember that when most people default to needing things ASAP, and when everything is ASAP, nothing is ASAP.
Yeah.
And if you do that for enough weeks and months and years, it's just like nothing gets done. Nothing meaningful gets done.
And that's all they did. Everything that they did was
ASAP. I want to see this ASAP. Can we get this cut ASAP?
Which really sucks when you got people sleeping in the Philippines that are supposed to be editing it. Okay, last one. Number 10. Normal agencies are like, let's understand the client. Let's do market feedback. Like, let's figure out what the customer wants, etc. We're like, no, don't understand the client. Be the client. And we lost sight of this for so long because we're like, oh, we're making content, we're making the podcast in the background, and we're like, you're shooting your vlogs, and we're like having a good time doing that. But we'd never use our 10 for 10 service. We didn't make a clip for the entire year that we had a clip company. It's like, oh, this is really fucking stupid. Let's actually use the service that we want to. What do we want? Oh, we just want like a very long-term flexible editor who we build these just infinite game relationships with. And then ideally, a little bit of like Patty strategy if we want to like have slightly more wins, but like not detract from the long-term game aspect of it. So we're like, okay, let's just build the product we want. Like scratch our own itch. Like, yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah.
So the goal with all this is like, one, I don't even want to be building an agency. Like the agency is just, it exists. It's kind of cool that it like provides for us, but I see the agency as an excuse to get our views on work out to the world. And ideally the goal with this is like the website is so cool, the ideas are relatively counterintuitive and most people don't do it. So when you're working at a company and you're like, God, I feel like no one listens to me. Like, I hate all these sync calls that we're doing. Oh, look at that successful company doing async, or ASAP is poison, or like do no harm versus be harmless. Like, now they can reference that, and ideally what we're going to do is like have Naval style edits, this visualized value. So we take like 50 to 100 words, basically take a 30-second clip, make it beautiful so people want to share this. Like, yo, look at what Clipt does. Look how they run their company. Why don't we do it more like that? I want to be the anti-agency instead of the agency.
Dude, sick. That's just sick with it. That's just sick with it.
Hey,
it's great to be mission oriented.
Do we want to end on 2 more notes?
Wait, was this the depressing one?
No, I got depressing.
What's depressing?
You want depressing?
What's depressing? I want my giggles to come back.
I don't know. Well,
what's the
that
depressing
sounds sadistic as fuck. What's depressing? I want my giggles to come back.
Those were separate sentences.
No, dude. No, it's not as funny now.
The depression?
No, it was just my girlfriend and I, we had a long chat last night about how I keep kicking friends out and eliminating people from my life.
Oh.
And she's like, that doesn't seem very healthy. And I'm like, well, I think if I'm not, for example, I came up with Brian, kicking him out of the group. Not like the group was noticeably, I guess, sad. I'm like, it's not really that. Like, I don't view it as sad. It's kind of like, it's...
Hey, you're different. You're unique.
Well, one, I guess the problem is like, because you've told me this too, it's like, hey, you don't have to like kick people out. And I'm like, I didn't really like block them. Like, they can come back. I'm just like, take our friend Brian. Okay, we have this group, this friend group.
Yes, dude, go there.
Context. And so we're always trying to do like once a quarter, once every 2 quarters, like whatever, like every 3 to 6 months, we're like, let's try and meet up. Let's do something together. And Brian, pretty much for our entire existence, back in college, the excuse was, oh, I'm on the golf team and we do things in spring break and stuff. He just never do things with us. I'm like, okay, you're not investing anything in our friendship. Like, I don't like that. I see that as harmful because you're just being a leech. It's like, you're just kind of in the background, and then when we try and like, Brian, why won't you go? He's like, I don't like you, Pop. I'm like, okay, funny joke, but like, why won't you actually go? Because I want to be your friend,
right, but
you refuse to do friend things. And I mean, the group kind of hates on me because like, Dylan, you never call him. But I'm like, that's not my love language. I don't like calling. So I really got upset. You just never invest. And I'm like, okay, you lost like your right to be in the group. Because I feel like having, for example, extrapolate, why don't we have other friends? Like MC, why isn't MC in this group? Like, she'd probably contribute more than Brian. Or like, even if she didn't, why wouldn't we have her in the group? Because I think it detracts from having that like really tight-knit group of like people that want to invest in friendships. Like, if you're not willing to invest, don't be in the group. So in a sense, it's a little bit zero sum, but I'm like...
Yeah, well, that's what I've told you. I'm like, friends can be positive sum. It's like you can have your sports group of friends, and you can have your nerd group of friends, and your poker group of friends.
I just see it as insulting when we're making efforts to be friends with someone, and they're like refusing to even give you an answer for why they won't hang out. Like, I get not hang out if you're like, hey, I really can't, like, I don't have the money to travel, or my job won't let me. Like, give me something. But if you're just like, I just don't like you, and I'm like, dude, that's not even a funny joke. So I just got really upset at that. And kind of it's like a trend of like another friend, like, wasn't really being responsive to.
Well, that's what happens when you get a lot of Taleb. It's just like...
I think I got to the point, it kind of got to the extreme. I like taking things to the extreme. I'm like, I'll be completely happy in life if I die with like 2 close friends and a family. Like, that's success to me. Versus someone like Ayes, for example, he gets like 278 texts or whatever it is saying happy birthday. I'm like, I don't want that.
Right.
Like, that just, to me, seems like a lot of fake friends. Then you don't know who to really depend on. Or like, maybe it's cool for opportunities opening up. Like,
well, yeah, I think all of these things are like both can work.
Yeah. But then I see, for example, Issa. So she just had to cut off her first friend. This Renata girl. Like, it was kind of like a weird toxic relationship. I saw it like 6 months ago. I'm like, because she said like, oh yeah, back in Ecuador, like I can't even like be around her because we're just like, she's kind of crazy and like just can't have that. Like, we have our own friend kind of like that where we don't want to introduce him to other friends. But I could see 6 months ago, I'm like, you shouldn't be friends with this person. Like, you're investing a lot of time. Like, for example, she's texting her, every day, or like calling her, hang out there. I'm like, all of this time is being wasted, because it's like the Naval thing. It's like, if you're not willing to be working with someone every day of your life, don't work with them for a day. It's like, if you're not willing to be friends with someone for the rest of your life, don't be friends with them for a day. It's like that, all that time she wasted, she was not looking for a better friend that's more compatible. And so like, even with my high school friends, it's like, I'm not really friends with them, but I also like, I don't know. It's kind of like, to me, it seems it would be weird that I would still be really close friends with them just because we were born in the same place. And we had a similar sense of humor at 12. I still have that sense of humor, but like, that's really all we have going for us, is like, oh, we had similar experiences. Like, it's, to her, it's really weird. I'm like, well, you relatively have changed little compared to me. And like, I don't know if that sounds like braggy or weird, but it's like, your life is pretty similar versus like Dylan today versus Dylan at 10 years old. I could never predict my life now. I could predict your life. So like, because your life is on the trajectory you thought it would be on, it makes sense that your friends are also on a similar trajectory. But mine is like completely different. So it doesn't make any sense that I'd be friends with people that I was before. And then like, I listen to like Alex Hormozy, and he's like not friends with any of his early people in his life or even his family. He's like, no, I changed as a person. Like, they bring me down.
Right.
I mean, my friends, like, they're cool. They're just like, they just want to fish, smoke weed, and like go to their kind of depressing job.
Which is kind of like the Mexican parable.
But it's not, because I'm like, I can't hang out with them because they're like, no, I'm tired from work and I got to go to work again in 5 hours. I just want to smoke and kind of like forget about things. I'm like, that sucks. Why are you living and suck for the rest of your life? Like, I want people that are like, this sucks. I just want to play tennis like you are, Dylan. Like,
right.
Let me find people that just want to do that all day. And I feel like every second I'm investing in my friends from high school, or a Brian that's like not investing back, that's wasted time in finding someone else that's more compatible.
Hey, that was the depressing segment. Segment.
Okay, one of the problems was like, you bring this up, it's like, you don't have to cut people out. She brings this up, and I'm like, part of the problem is I see basically everyone always telling me like, you can't do this, like, whatever, you can't not work and still be successful. I'm like, well, I did it. You can't get into Brown. Well, I did it.
Right.
You can't, whatever, make an anti-agency. And it's like,
yeah,
well,
no, I think you can. I think you can do this and be like this. You can't say to like an Ais who has 300 friends, like, you need to do it this way.
No,
I think that's the difference.
Yeah, the difference is people telling me I can't do it that way. I'm like,
right.
But it's kind of like, that's where I just look at old people, and I'm like, I look at my dad, for example, and I'm like, you really just hang out with your girlfriend / like wife. It's like, it's mainly you two, and then maybe like once every couple weeks you'll like see a friend in person, or like your neighbor. But I'm like, you really just gotta get this right once, and that's it. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't trade our life. Well, hey, I guess you still, I don't know how many texts you got on your birthday, but I don't know. I'm like, I think almost, maybe it's the fact, like, I just see like almost everyone in the world, I think they're like approaching life wrong. And so it's weird when they're like, no, Dylan, you're approaching life wrong. I'm like, no. Don't tell me I'm the one with no clothes on. You're the one with no clothes on.
Right. Huh.
What
else you got?
I had one more. You don't really contribute much. You just kind of listen, huh?
No, I just listen. My brain got squashed by the commandments.
Yeah, I saw that, Deep. We kind of got serious. I was going to bring it full circle on like living what we preach, opportunity cost, and how you finally ate $30. That's all I had, dude. That's
what you wanted to do?
Well, I'm just, a lot of times okay, well, there's not much there. It's like, you guys went to.
That was a real one. Hey, I'll give it to you, Pop. Me and Athena, we're going to go. Oh, well.
Your girlfriend.
I have a girlfriend. This comes from, I think like a week or two ago, I asked you like, how hard do you abide by opportunity costs? Because we talk about it a lot. and setting this Naval aspirational hourly rate of $5,000 an hour. And if something isn't worth $5,000 an hour, like, you just don't do it. So I asked you, like, you know, how much you actually abide by this? You're like, actually, I think a lot. And I'm like, yeah, okay, me too. On Amazon, I buy a lot of shit really fast because, like, I don't even want to think about it.
I told you, I'm like, I don't know how to return something.
Right.
So I just bought a $1,000 toilet seat. I'm like, if it doesn't work, I don't know how to return it.
That's the opportunity cost.
I guess. Like,
Aspirational hourly rate. And so Athena and I had date night last night, and we went to a late dinner, and we did something I would never do, bought tickets to a 9 p.m. movie. Because I really want to see Jordan Peele's new movie, Nope. And we're leaving for Mexico this week, and it's hectic, and I didn't know when we were going to see it next. So I'm like, 9 p.m., let's go see it. And we go to dinner. Dinner's nice, but I had a huge burger, so I got really tired, and she had shaved ribeye, so she got really tired. And we walk into the movie theater, and I've got the tickets, like $35. And we're walking up the stairs to the movie theater, and we're like, this is Abilene, isn't it? This is Abilene Paradox.
Abilene means no one wants to go to Abilene, Texas, but they all go because they think the rest of the family.
Right, like, I'm walking up the stairs to the movie theater because it's date night, and I think we want to go see the movie. And Athena thinks, you know, I bought the tickets to the 9 p.m. movie, and I really want to see Nope. And halfway up the stairs, we look at each other, and we're like, would we be happier if we just went home right now and saw the movie another time?
Because it's already in the past that you paid for the ticket.
Because the tickets are sunk cost. We already bought them. Should we also endure the cost of going to a 9 p.m. movie and falling asleep and not enjoying it? So we got to the top of the stairs. She's like, do you want to return these tickets? I'm like, no way, baby. Not worth my time. We go right back down the stairs and leave.
So if it would have taken 5 minutes to get a refund, 5 times 12, 12 times 35, it's like $500 an hour. Almost, not quite.
That's pretty good.
That's not bad. I'll take that.
$500 a 9 p.m. hour.
Yeah.
Huh.
I think I want to talk about something, but I guess we can just end it there.
Drop the thread.
I don't really know what I want.
I gotta go to Mexico.
I wanted to think of an example for me in opportunity cost.
Oh, you had one, the bidet. Well, yeah, here. What are you going to do with the bidet when you leave this place?
Oh, that's a good one. Just going to leave it here. We also destroyed the toilet to put it in. I don't know if we ever told that story on this podcast. But we had Michelangelo come in, chip away at the toilet. Dude, that was actually crazy. I've never seen you sweatier and just muffed out. Muff is the muffin top, fat, and a mullet. You looked like an actual handyman that I just pulled off the street and was like, yo, dude, I got a new toilet seat. Can you break my toilet and put it on? And we did. And it rips. It warms your butt and shoots water into it. So that's $1,000.
Now you do work from the toilet.
Yeah, now you're really suspicious. Anytime there was like a jackhammer and the window open, you're like, you better not be on that toilet.
Yeah, we were on a 2-hour call yesterday, and for half of it, I just hear like, I'm like, Pop, are you on the bidet, Pop? Is that a gargling water spout I hear going up your butt?
Dude, it's nice. Hey,
go!